This is the Aventon Abound SR, which is a short rack or short tail utility e-bike made to be able to do a little bit of everything. That means commuting, running errands, bringing the kids along for a ride, or just getting some fresh air and exercise. Now, on the surface, it might look pretty straightforward, but Aventon packed a ton of premium tech into this bike, primarily in terms of security features. So what does this bike offer that other similar models don't? Let's take a ride and find out. Welcome to Electric Bike Report, and thanks for joining me today. My name's John, and I'm really looking forward to getting into this review of the Abound SR with you, but I have a couple quick notes to run through before we really dive in. So first, this review is gonna be a little bit different as we haven't yet had the chance to take this bike through our usual series of standardized performance tests, but we have spent a good deal of time on the bike. For this video, we'll cover the bike's specs and talk about the features that really jumped out to us the most, but we will be releasing a full review separately once our testing is finished. If you want to know when that goes live, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our new reviews. Second, I want to take a moment to highlight our new weekly show, which, at least for now, we're calling Recharge Your Batteries. Each episode, my fellow reviewer Griffin and I take a look at some cool and funny bike-related content. We share recent news from the e-bike industry, we talk about all the bikes we have in testing, and we answer questions from you, the audience, along with a few other things. Finally, if this review gets you serious about buying the Abound SR, please be sure to use our affiliate link down in the video description if or when you make a purchase, as we are supported by commissions. Using our link won't change the price you pay, but it does help us to keep making high-quality content like this, and we really appreciate the support. But let's get into the Abound SR and run through its specs. Starting off with the motor and battery, Aventon did something a little bit different by outfitting the bike with a 750-watt rear hub motor and a 708 watt-hour battery, both of which run on a 36-volt electrical system instead of the 48-volt system we usually see paired with those specs. We'll talk a little bit more about the effects of that later. The bike has an 8-speed Shimano Altis drivetrain with a 52-tooth chainring covered by a chain guard, and then a 12 to 32-tooth cassette. Both the front and rear wheels have 20-inch by 3-inch Innova street tires with alloy fenders and 180mm rotors that are paired with the 2-piston Tektro E3520 hydraulic disc brake system. There's a coil suspension fork up front. We measured about 40mm of travel, and we were very happy to see really solid 40mm stanchions on the fork, as well as a through axle for really stable handling. There's also a suspension seat post with 50mm of travel to help smooth out the ride, and a Cell Royal saddle with a built-in handle. There's an integrated LED headlight up front, as well as a tail light with brake light functionality and turn signals that's mounted beneath the rear cargo rack. The rack itself is removable and has up to 100 pounds of carrying capacity. The bike comes with mesh wheel guards, and it's also compatible with a ton of cargo and passenger accessories that are available for purchase separately. Up in the cockpit, there's a set of BMX-style riser handlebars that we measured at 730mm wide, and those include locking ergonomic rubber grips. The bike's shifter sits on the right handlebar, and there's a throttle lever on the left handlebar, along with a small module that combines a control panel and a color display. A few final details before we jump into a more detailed look at some of the bike's features. The Abound SR weighs in at 80 pounds and has a total payload capacity of 440 pounds, including the rider. It ships as a Class 2 e-bike with throttle and pedal assist up to 20 miles per hour, but after the bike is paired with the Aventon app, it can be unlocked to a maximum of 25 miles per hour. And then finally, the bike is available in 3 color options. This one is appropriately called Stealth, but there's also Haze, which is of course purple, and Cobalt, which is a nice rich blue. That covers all the basics though, so let's go a little bit deeper on the bike's construction, its pedal assist system, and all the cool tech that Aventon packed in. The first topic I want to expand on is the Abound SR's construction, because Aventon has done some really cool and innovative things with the way this bike is made. We've tested many step-through e-bikes where frame flex was really noticeable, and adding extra weight from cargo usually only amplifies that. In fact, that was one of our points of critique on the original full-size Abound, but at least so far it seems that should be much less of an issue here. Most of the time, unless you're dealing with carbon fiber, bike frames are made of a bunch of individual pieces of tubing that are welded together. For the Abound SR, Aventon used a method called gravity casting for the head tube, the down tube, the bottom bracket area, and a portion of the chainstays. If you notice, there are no welds visible in many areas where they normally would be, like where the down tube meets the head tube, and that's because all of those areas are made in a single piece. There are two main benefits to this method of construction, with those being aesthetics and structural integrity. So on the aesthetic side, you get this really smooth and clean look that you can't really achieve without either using a different material or putting in a lot of work to grind down welds. But more importantly, with the main body of the frame being a single piece, it makes the whole thing more rigid and stable, and Aventon was also able to build in some internal supports to beef things up even more. They also took a bit of a different approach with the seat tube, so instead of being a single round tube, it's actually double-walled, which makes it stiffer. And then I also want to talk about the stem. So the original model had a collapsible stem that was intended to make the bike more portable, but Aventon swapped that for a pretty heavy-duty telescoping quill stem that allows for handlebar height adjustment, but also keeps the front feeling super stable. I have a background in design and manufacturing, so I couldn't help but geek out on this stuff, but more to the point, it's super impressive to see the team at Aventon going to such lengths to make a really great looking and solid feeling bike. Back in the overview section, I mentioned that this bike has a 750 watt motor, which is relatively standard when it comes to cargo and utility bikes with hub motors, as they're powerful enough to move a lot of weight. This motor tops out at 950 watts of peak power with 80 newton meters of torque. To dive more into the electrical system I mentioned earlier, the higher the system's voltage, the faster the motor can draw and use power from the battery. We usually see 750 watt motors paired with 48 volt systems, so those are able to draw power faster than the Abound SR's 36 volt system. That makes this bike feel a little bit more reserved and natural in comparison, which is not a bad thing considering that many cargo bikes can feel overpowered unless they are really loaded down. But like the full-size version of the Abound, the SR's motor is paired with a torque sensor, and that allows the bike's motor output to fluctuate in response to the amount of pressure applied to the pedals. This adds to that natural feel, so riding this bike feels a lot like being on an analog bike, just faster and easier. Now, I want to point out that this torque sensor can be extremely sensitive. We found that it's important to keep your effort and cadence pretty consistent to prevent the bike from kind of lurching forward or backward in response to small changes in pedal pressure, but it is possible to adjust the torque sensor's responsiveness through the Aventon app. We've actually been able to work with the team at Aventon to help dial in the bike's motor output. So there are 3 pedal assist settings, which are Eco, Sport, and Turbo. Aventon sent us this bike in advance, and after some initial testing, we found that Sport and Turbo felt nearly identical. So the brand's development team took our feedback about that and pushed out a few firmware updates to address it. So now all 3 of the Abound's power levels feel distinct, and that's another thing that can be adjusted through the Ride Tune section of the app. All right, now it's time to get into the really fun stuff. I've talked a bit about all the cool tech packed into this bike, and all of that is centered around a smart module called the Aventon Control Unit, or ACU, which sits at the base of the frame just behind the C2. The ACU allows for the motor output and torque sensor adjustments through the app that I mentioned earlier, but another of its primary responsibilities is security. The module can actually lock the kickstand in place, so there's no way anyone could grab this bike and run off with it. It can lock or eject the battery from its home inside the bike's down tube, and then either through the app or the bike's display, it's possible to set up a passcode that must be entered before the bike can be unlocked and used. The ACU also includes a 4G chip for GPS location tracking, so users can set up geofencing to map out areas where the bike can and cannot go. It has an alarm system with a few different levels of sensitivity, so if someone jostles the bike or takes it beyond those geofencing boundaries, the alarm will go off. And then in the event that someone does manage to ride off with the bike, there's also a remote shutdown feature. The 4G chip connects to nationwide cellular networks, and it's free for the first year, but after that it will require a nominal subscription fee, which is either $20 annually or $2 a month. And the ACU has its own power source that is charged by the main battery, so even if the battery is removed, it will function on its own for about 2 weeks. The Aventon app has always been something that we've appreciated. It's allowed users to track ride data, adjust speed and other settings, and interact with the community of other Aventon e-bike owners. But it's been expanded quite a bit with the Abound SR to include all the security and ride tuning features, and it can now also be set up to automatically sync ride data with Strava as well as Apple Health. For perspective, we've tested e-bikes ranging from under $1,000 to well over $10,000. Right now, the Abound SR has an MSRP of about $2,200, and we haven't seen these kinds of security features on many bikes below about $4,000, and sometimes much higher than that, so we think it's priced very competitively for what it offers. I hope it's obvious that we're really excited about the Abound SR and everything that comes with it. Aventon has a long history of making great bikes, and generally speaking, we've been happy to recommend each and every one of them. So far, it seems like the same will be true with the SR, but we can't be completely sure until we're able to complete our real-world performance testing and see how it stacks up by the numbers. We have a short list of questions that we expect to find answers for once that testing is completed. So first, we really want to know what effects, if any, the bike's 36-volt electrical system will have on both its range and its ability to move a heavy load of cargo. Second, we want to get a deeper understanding of everything that can be done through the Aventon app. I spent a good chunk of time playing around with it in preparation for this initial review, but there's a lot to explore. So far, it seems like the app is going to be an essential part of owning and using this bike, but we'll see how things shake out. Finally, we're extremely curious to know how this bike will compare to other similar bikes we've tested, but more specifically, I'm interested to see how it will compare with the Specialized Globe Haul ST. There's a lot about this bike that reminds me of that one, including its quill stem and its super responsive torque sensor, and it seems that the folks at Aventon took a lot of inspiration from the Haul and put their own spin on it. Regardless, we look forward to completing our full review, so if the Abound SR interests you, again, please make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that when it goes live. And if you're already super stoked and you want to get in on the pre-order for the SR, please be sure to use our affiliate link in the video description. Don't forget to like this video and let us know what you think about it down in the comments section. But thanks for taking a ride with me today. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the Aventon Abound SR.